Two devastated parents with shell-shocked eyes and dangling arms, empty, like wraiths. 2 months later, I flew from Chicago to my parents' house in Virginia, where I'd grown up, for the wedding of a family friend. I was tired from the weeks of grieving and yearned for the comfort of the rolling hills and woods near my family home. As soon as I arrived, I questioned my decision. The wedding was crawling with new babies and children. My stomach was still round from the pregnancy. The aunt of the bride, who lived out of state, rushed to greet me from across the room. "I heard you were having twins," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "When are you due?" I struggled to answer. Death seemed an inappropriate thing to mention at a wedding. Stillborn was a word that was still unutterable on my tongue. Late that night, I stood in the hallway of my parents' house outside the bathroom, sobbing. I'd started brushing my teeth but stopped when I realized I could no longer see. The blood in my head made a whooshing sound like fast-moving water in my ears. Spots appeared in front of my eyes and I wondered if I was going to faint. I dropped the toothbrush into the sink and leaned into the hallway, bracing myself against the wall beams with my arms. My heart fluttered in the unnatural way it had since I lost the twins. Sometimes I found it difficult to breathe, and it did not seem unrealistic to me that a person could die from this kind of pain. My raw cries sent my father to the basement, but my mother came to meet me in the hall. There had been a time, even 2 or 3 years before, when she would not have come, or when I would not have let her near me. Our reconnection had come as a surprise, with a will of its own, fueled perhaps by the same phenomenon that allows mothers to lift cars to save their infants. She encircled me in her arms, squeezing my body as if she was trying to suck the pain out of me as one does for snake bites. I remembered vaguely the feel of this embrace, her brown skin, a freckle on the side of her neck, her short hair that had become a bit coarse from coloring. I heaved and wept. When I'd exhausted myself, she held me a foot or so from her and lifted my chin, forcing me to meet her eyes. "You will know joy again," she said. I cried harder. I shook my head no. "Yes," she said, almost laughing at my obstinacy, the way one might to coax a toddler out of a tantrum. Instead of offending, her lightness wedged an opening between me and the hurt. "There is going to be joy at the other end of this pain," she said again. I looked into her face through the gleam of tears and still couldn't imagine it. But I stopped crying and began wiping my eyes with the edge of my nightgown. My mother pulled me to her chest again. This time our embrace was quiet. The house was still. Through the cotton of her t-shirt, I could feel the thumping of her heart. Against my chest, it sounded like hope. Chapter 1. By the time I arrived for my appointment with Dr. Bazan, a doctor of osteopathy, D.O., OBGYN, I'd found in Chicago, I hadn't had a period in almost 3 years. I had just turned 30, and even though Bill and I had not officially begun trying to have children yet, the fact that we might already have fertility issues weighed heavily on my mind. When I signed in, the receptionist informed me that the doctor was running 2 hours behind schedule. 2 hours. I took a seat in the waiting room and tried to calm my nerves. It seemed an inordinately long time to wait. I was already anxious. Bill and I had just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. 6 years older than I was, he said he felt 40 stalking him. Even if details in GQ didn't write about it, men felt the pressure of the biological clock too, he said. "I don't want to be 60 when our child graduates from high school." I was trained in holistic medicine and for 2 years had pursued a natural approach to resuming my cycle. But when I still didn't have a period, Bill became alarmed, and after 24 months of acupuncture and herbs and tinctures and teas, it was my turn to try something different. My hope was to find a Western doctor who was at least open to a complementary approach. Dr. Bazan's office had an air of neglect, a somewhat disconcerting contrast with the luxurious and polished offices of Chicago's other highly ranked OBs I had visited or would visit over the next 6 years. Looking around at the disarray of Dr. Bazan's entryway, the fingerprinted covered glass, floorboards from the 1930s that were crumbling in places that had never been restored, I wondered if she had the expertise of a top-level doctor. But while Dr. Bazan's lack of punctuality and office aesthetics did not inspire my confidence, what I really wanted in a doctor now was someone with an expertise in fertility and menstruation, an open mind,